Hello YouTube, I just wanted to post a video about my experience with the InSoFast recessed stud panels. The ones I'm using are the EXi 2.5s. They're the ones with the studs are overlaid with the paneling material. As you can see, there's the stud, and then it has this nice little bit of thickness on there between the stud and where the drywall will actually attach to. I just wanted to give you a few tips or my experience of what has been going on. What I suggest is going around, like one of the things I suggest is going around and where you have these studs, like mine don't leak, so it's not really a big deal for me. I filled in a few of them that were extra deep, but if they stick up, like up in here, where this one was sticking out, had a big glob of concrete, I just took a hammer, a bricklayer's hammer, and just knocked that off. Just went down the wall, dusted everything. We pulled out all the insulation that had been placed up here because pulled it out, vacuumed it out, because the last thing I want to be doing is putting these panels up, then have to go through and pull all that dust and dirt and all that other crap that's up there out on top of these brand new panels. So I always suggest you do that first, dust the wall first, sweep the floors, you're good to go. One thing you may notice when you're doing these is your wall, this concrete wall, is not plumb. And it's not 90 degrees to the floor. It's pretty darn close, but it's not going to be 90 degrees to the floor. And you can't eyeball it and tell that it's not plumb, but if you put a level on it, more than likely it's off a few degrees, and so your panels may lean a little bit. But as long as the wall is flat, the panel will stick right to it with no problem. You will also have you can also have issues with, because when they do these basement foundations like this, they do the walls, then they let the walls cure, and then they do whatever they need to do on the floor, and then they pour the floor. They never do them at the same time. And so you never get this 90-degree finish. And as you can kind of see in the corner here, there's always these little globs and whatnot that are left everywhere. So it's pretty easy with these panels since they're fairly flexible. You can take and push them just up against the wall, and this panel here had just actually popped off the wall. Don't know why. These walls, there's a wave to them, because of the way the panels are made. There's going to be a wave. You don't really see it with your eye because you're not really looking at it, but when you start putting these panels up that are straight, you will see a wave. You will notice a wave because the panels will not quite stick to the wall. There will be spots where it's just raised up a little bit. And this panel right here, I just had put in, has already moved a little. So you're always good. As you can see, I've got several things braced up against this wall because this wall is very wavy. So it's good to have some heavy things around that you can lean up against the panel to kind of hold it up there while the glue sets. Because this glue has a long work time, which is great because it lets you reposition it, move the panel around if you need to, squeeze it in there. When you're putting these up, you always want to make sure you look at the gap between the panels just to make sure that the panels have reached, that they are actually snug up against each other, because you don't want any gaps in these things because this is, a complete system here. You got to seal the bottoms and seal the corners. You don't have to go through and seal between every panel. That's why you want to make sure it's all the way down and it's all the way up against the other panel. And then go back as you're putting one up. You go back and look at the ones you just put up just to make sure that it is still flush against the wall. Push on it. If you have anybody helping you, everybody just goes around and starts pushing on them. Because after a few hours, the glue will be tacky enough that they will stay up there and it will never, ever move again. I also suggest, you go around, as I said, you go around with a brick hammer and knock these high points off the wall because that helps. Fill in any big holes, pull down that. Getting around obstructions at the top, always a nightmare. I had some challenges with it to start with, but it's just a matter of measuring and using the right thing to cut with. This wall and this wall over here went pretty quickly because there was only one thing that was in there, and it's this window. And I just made sure I left enough room that I can put a good 2 by whatever up here, maybe a 2x6, all the way around the window just to frame it out after I spray foam in there. I've also went through and marked several places where there were like panel problems, like there's a gap there, there's a few gaps up there, just to mark them so that later when I'm coming back through and I'm spray foaming this, I will actually be able to, it'll catch my eye, because when you're looking at this big white wall, you may miss something. And you can see there's some spots there that I marked around the plumbing. This was the challenge wall to get around everything, because these top panels, you have to slide in and then lean into the position. You have to lean them back, put in the bottom, and then slide in the top. And if you cut them a little too long, they won't fit because the stupid floor joist will be in the way. And you may have to go back, cut them again. You may have to cut them in half. Like this panel up here had to be cut in half just to fit in behind all the plumbing and around it. Was a giant pain. One of the big things I do with my panels is, of course, I do this standard on the studs, but I also do a little glob of glue in the corners. That's because with these guns, of course, these big tubes, they always run on a little bit after you're done squeezing them. So no need to let that go to waste, and I just dab it on there. Put it on really thick so it's nice and thick. I also suggest, my first go around was I bought just one of these tube guns, one of these caulking guns I bought from Home Depot. It's that one right there. Big giant pain in the butt, just for the fact that it's a 1-to-1 squeeze ratio on that thing, and these tubes, that glue does not want to come out of there, and it is a ginormous workout on your hand to try and keep just squeezing these things all the time. So I went online, bought this one from Amazon, I believe, but a lot of people sell it. It's a Jess M26L. What it is it's got a compound action in the trigger, so that when you squeeze it, for every it just multiplies what you're doing by several times, so that it makes it a lot easier to squeeze these big tubes, because they don't want to come out. Make sure you have enough glue. I still have some left. I still have some walls left. Also, make sure you buy enough panels. On the website they tell you how much every square footage to get. I bought exactly that amount. I'm feeling like it's going to be enough with all the obstructions that I'm going to have to work around on the walls, especially on the last wall that has all of the mechanical stuff on it. But it doesn't hurt, I think, if you get an extra box. It's $100 or so, depending on which ones you get. And it may just be worth it. It may save you the trouble, because at your tops, these are not full panels. These are all half panels, or a little less, a little more. Mine are all right about 15-inch panels at the top. So I've had to cut the tops off of several panels. These are not going to fit anywhere else. If it comes down to it, because the wall up there is 15 and these are a dozen. They're 12 inches. So what I'll end up having to do, if it comes down to it, I'll end up having to cut the lips off of them, which is this part here, and just stacking them on top of each other to fill in any last little bit. So if you think about it, get the extra box just to save yourself some headache. I also recommend doing all your wiring and stuff. Once you have the panels up, once they're glued in, the glue is set up and hardened, and before you spray foam, because you never want to cut spray foam out of these things. This is my mechanical wall. This one's going to be this one's going to be a pain, just because like my oil tank, because I live in New England, Maine specifically, this oil tank is right up against the wall. It's maybe a half-inch gap there. There's no way I'm going to get anything behind it, so I'm just going to put panels all the way around it and then seal it with foam. Same thing with the electrical panel over there. I'm not going to take it off the wall. That would be too much of a workout on it. And I'm just going to put panels around it and seal it. Because it's about the panels is mainly what you're going on about. In this window, I'll do the same as the other one. I'll just leave a basically an 1.5-inch gap so that I can put a 2x6 or whatever up there, maybe a 2x4 just to frame the window out so that it doesn't look weird. I started out with 20 boxes. I got a wall and a half to go, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 8 boxes left. Moving right along. They also make great trash cans for anything you cut down, cut up, do whatever. I always recommend save your offcuts because you never know when you're going to need it, like around those windows and up along the top, around the plumbing, all the good stuff. If you have any comments, leave them below.